to another edition of Transparency in Government. Glad you're joining us. And as usual, we're starting off with our town manager, Kevin Smith. And we have to let you know right away that Kevin is sporting a new look today. Kevin, explain the new hairdo.
So, Dottie, as many people in the community are probably aware, one of our firefighters, Zachary O'Brien, who is the fire chief's son, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma not too long ago.
And he's only 22.
He is, and obviously this was devastating news to the family and to Zach and really to everyone at the fire department and town hall. And so as part of a fundraiser to raise monies to help with medical expenses for Zach, they had asked if they raised $3,000 if I'd be willing to shave my head for that. Now I will note that
I thought it was 5.
No, see, that's
3.
the thing.
Okay.
That's the thing, Dottie. My head was worth $3,000. The police chief's head was worth $6,000.
Oh,
okay?
wow.
There was a higher bounty out on the police chief's head than there was on mine.
Do we have a picture of the police chief?
There's a few floating out there.
Yeah, I need to see that.
Some have mistaken him for Don Rickles, though, in the photo. I'm sure he'll appreciate me bringing that up.
Oh my goodness.
Nonetheless, so many people came together for this, both inside and outside of the community. A lot of firefighters from outside of Londonderry came in.
It's great how they're a family, regardless of the community that they're
really
in.
is.
They all come together.
Yeah, and they ended up raising well in excess of $10,000.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so I ended up getting a summer due.
Yes, you did.
As a result of that, as did the police chief. Kathy Wagner is another one who ended up getting her head shaved as well.
She did.
She did.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Good for her.
Yeah. So it was a great event.
For some reason, it's like so much more difficult for a woman to do that.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Our crowning glory.
Yes, absolutely. So, but all in, for a good cause, and like I said, it was great to see so many people come together for it, and
that's terrific.
And hopefully, Zachary's got a few more treatments to go through, but so far so good, and the treatments seem to be working.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's
so
great.
We'll continue to keep him and the family in our thoughts and prayers. And
they're such an awesome family.
They really are.
Yeah, they've given
they
a lot
really,
to
really
Londonderry over the years.
Yeah, they have,
and
it's great to see the community now giving back to them in their time of need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrific.
So that's
a fun
the
way
story
to start.
with it. Yes,
that's
it
a
is.
fun way to start.
Absolutely.
Okay, a little more serious.
Yeah.
The gas pipeline. What's going on with that? Can you give us an update?
Sure. The latest is I received a few letters recently from Kinder Morgan. They've all been posted on our webpage, so anyone that wants to go on and read them can do so. Basically stating that they've withdrawn their application now to go forward with the pipeline. So for all intent and purposes, the pipeline is done.
It's dead. Okay.
And it won't be happening anytime soon. Somewhat unexpected news, but nonetheless, they just determined it wasn't going to be economically feasible.
So it had nothing to do with all the protest over it.
Well, they're not saying that.
But it must have.
But certainly I think that probably played into their decision.
Yeah.
They received a lot of pushback.
They did.
From communities, from elected officials, all the way down the line.
Yeah, all over. Yeah.
It goes without saying though that we still have an energy, what I would call an energy crisis in this state, and really in all of New England.
Yeah.
In that energy costs here are the highest in the country. And we really need to figure out a way to bring more alternative forms of energy into this region, or else we're going to continue to pay very high energy costs. That not only hurts homeowners, but it hurts businesses and trying to attract businesses to this state. If they're large energy users, a lot of times they won't even consider New England because the cost of doing business here is so high. So it does remain a problem for us in this region.
It's interesting that you say we've got to look for alternatives. We definitely do. I actually had someone come over a couple of weeks ago and talk to me about solar energy, but then he said you'd have to cut down that tree and that tree, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that. But I think that that's something that people kind of need to open their minds to, is the solar energy issue. It's not what they think sometimes. It can be very beneficial to everyone if people look into it. And there are programs going on right now that are very helpful.
Right.
So I would recommend that if somebody is looking for a way to help, maybe that would be a place to start.
Well, and one of
see
the
if they can do solar energy.
One of the things we just did too is we changed the ordinance for folks who have the solar panels on their homes that we will now exempt the entire system from being taxed.
Wonderful. Okay.
Previously, it was only up to a certain amount. I want to say maybe $1,000 or $1,500. Now it's the entire system. So whatever the cost of the entire system is, we're not going to be taxing that.
That's great.
As part of your overall assessment.
Great to know.
Yep.
Great to know. DES. What's going on with DES and the...
Yeah, the PFOA issue continues to be an issue primarily, it's primarily an issue in Litchfield, Bedford, and Merrimack.
But I understand they just sent out a survey to some firms locally to find out what's going on. Did you see anything about that?
I'm not sure I'm familiar with that.
Okay.
A survey with regard to...
I think they wanted to find out with those different firms what was the
I know what you're
impact that
saying.
they might have.
Right. Well, correct. What they've done is they've sent out letters to companies that may be using or emitting PFOAs into the air as a result of their business. It should be noted that as of right now, that's all it is a letter and a survey that's gone out. There's no... They haven't gotten any of the information back yet to say there's other companies that are emitting PFOAs. Right. There were a few in Londonderry that got letters, but they have a whole priority list.
Sure.
1, 2, 3, 4. These companies were down on the lower end of the priority list. So we'll see what the results of those surveys show. But right now, I don't believe there's any cause to be alarmed by any of it. And as I said, the PFOA contamination is primarily in those other towns. There's a few wells in Londonderry that were tested as a part of this, and thus far the tests that have come back on those wells, the results have been very low.
Okay.
And by very low, I mean well below what the EPA has now set as a standard of 70 parts per trillion.
Per trillion?
Yes. These have tested well below those levels.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can't even count to a trillion.
I'm not going to ask you to, Dottie.
Thank you. Okay, bouncing around here a little bit, but
Sure.
The town common, what's happening up there? I understand that we have a volunteer that's been working.
Yeah, Kent Allen continues to work very diligently up there of cleaning trails and widening the trails up there now that the town forest area has been turned over to the purview of the town manager's office.
Yeah.
He's been doing a lot of work in there. It's amazing for anyone that's gone through there to see that it's primarily been done by one person.
Yeah.
I mean, Kent does have some volunteers now and then, but really it's a great area now to go up to on the common, to have a picnic up there, walk the trails afterward. There's a plethora of trails now going through that forest. And it's really, Andy Mack called it a nature's classroom.
Oh, good.
And that's really what it's become. It's great to just be able to walk through there and see everything, especially right now as we're transitioning into summer, seeing all the plants come up and the number of birds that are in the forest. It's a great area, and I'd encourage anyone who hasn't been in there to take a visit there. And you can walk your dog through there, although it does need to be on a leash. Yep. In accordance with the new ordinance. I know Peanut would like to explore the forest.
Of course she would.
Right?
Yeah. She'd prefer not to be on a leash, though.
I bet.
She finds it very confining.
Yes.
So, no. Okay, so we won't talk about the leash law because we've already talked about that
Sure.
before. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the new trash recycling pickup. I know that I saw in the paper that we have some people in the over 55 housing that were concerned about being able to move the larger containers. And I know that the garbage trash is going to be picked up every week, so you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about that festering and drawing flies. But the recycling is going to be every other week.
Yeah.
And we're hoping everybody
Right.
will fill up their containers.
Right. There's a smaller recycling option too. If some of our elderly residents in town, and maybe it's just them and their husband or wife, just the two of them, and they're not filling up these large containers, they can get
Right.
a smaller recycling container. So you're not
Okay.
just limited to having the big 96-gallon one. There's a smaller one that it's probably around the same size as the trash
Okay.
bin that might be even a little bit smaller that they can use if they just don't have that much recycling.
Yeah.
So that is another option available to them. We're trying to accommodate the residents as best we can.
Of course.
And the new program does start on July 1st. So we're trying to get the word out there and let people know this is all
When
coming.
are they going to be delivering our new?
It should be pretty
containers?
soon.
Okay.
It should be coming up with them pretty soon. And if people are wondering what to do with the old containers,
The little red
the red ones,
Yeah.
you can hold on to it, you can keep it, or you can recycle it. You can throw it in the new container.
Okay, but if you don't put it in the new container, it won't get recycled.
Correct.
Is that how that goes?
Yes. Yes. All the
Yeah.
recycling will now be in the new recycling bins.
I tried to recycle trash barrels after we went to the barrels that we have now.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. They don't want to take them.
No, they
They're like,
don't.
oh, wait a minute, do we have permission to take that? So I had
Right.
to put signs on them, said this really is to be recycled.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I think over time people will like the new recycling program.
Well, and it's going to save us a ton of money in the long run
It
here.
is saving us a lot of
Yeah.
money. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's always a good goal.
Yes, it is.
So,
Yeah, no
Yep.
question.
So we're not going to complain about that too much.
No.
And I think if people are willing to do it, you can reach out for help.
Right.
I know that a lot of times there are things that older people can't do themselves and they need some help with, and you'd be surprised how much help there is out there if you just reach out.
Yeah, if people have concerns or they have questions, they shouldn't hesitate to call the Public Works Department. Donna Lamoli, that's in there, will be more than happy to help answer any questions or any concerns that
Yeah.
folks may have about it.
Yeah. And if you need help getting them out there, maybe call the Senior Center and talk to Kathleen
Absolutely.
Blash
Kathy
and
Blash,
see
yep.
if she can help out.
Absolutely.
Get you connected with somebody. Okay, let's see, where are we here? Can't read my own writing.
Budget discussions?
That's the one. How'd you know that? You can read it from there, and I
Pretty,
can't read
your
it
writing's
from
pretty
here.
good, Dottie.
Jeez, it's the writing's good. The reading's not that great.
So,
Yeah, we started really early this
well,
year
the
with
council's,
budget
the
discussions.
council's looking at trying to start the process earlier this year to
Okay.
get more information early on. Since we've been in this, since we switched to the ballot voting and deliberative session and the default budget, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of the budget process now. So what the council has asked for is, what the default budget will be for fiscal year 18, and then pulling out any increases in the budget outside of the contractual increases.
Okay.
And just listing those separately so that the council can look at, because by law we have to present this default
Right.
budget. And so really breaking it down to what are the things outside of the default budget that we've either increased or decreased, debating those areas, and something like that really shouldn't take all that long.
Yeah.
Because there really aren't, in the past years, we really haven't made many adjustments from the default budget. Now, there's also going to be discussion around new personnel, as more and more development comes into town. And so one of the things that Councilor Farrell had brought up at one of the recent meetings was, let's look at perhaps adding some new police, new fire, and new DPW workers.
Right.
And also trying to tie that to data and analytics as well. Most of these new developments, the larger ones, all do fiscal analysis reports. And so they will analyze what is the need for services
Okay.
as
Their
a result
impact
of
on
that.
the community.
What's that?
Their impact on the community.
Their impact on the community. And they work with police, fire, and DPW on those fiscal analysis reports, fiscal impact statements. So we should be able to take those reports, look at what the impact is, and then determine how much personnel is needed going forward based on those. So it's all tied to data. We're not just arbitrarily picking numbers out of the air and saying we need this or that. And the other component to this is, we were successful in a previous budget of adding 4 new firefighters and a new police officer. It's 5 new personnel, and the tax rate decreasing at the same time, in doing that, which is really unheard of. But that's a smart way to budget. We have new revenue coming in from all of this new development. And so you just want to make sure that your spending isn't outpacing the new amount of revenue. That's when the tax rate starts to go up.
Yeah.
When you're spending more than what you're taking in revenue.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is say, okay, we know we're going to need, this amount of new personnel, but at the same time, and maybe we phase it in so that it isn't impacting the tax rate at the same time, but rather is keeping the tax rate steady and not going past it. And that was one of the things I had brought up in my State of the Town address back in March, was one of the challenges for the town is going to be making sure that we're not increasing spending faster than all of the new valuation that's coming on as a result of these new developments. Because it can be easy to look around and see all this development and go, well, now here's our opportunity. Here's our opportunity to get this, and our opportunity to get it.
Yeah.
Those things cost money. So you want to temper it and say, okay, we do need, an increase in these services, but let's not go crazy here and, go past where again, the new revenue is coming in, the level of the new revenue.
And from an economic development perspective, doesn't it make us a much more attractive community if we have that level tax rate? So,
Absolutely, because the company's
which
coming
in turn
in.
comes in and lowers our tax rate.
Right. The company's coming in, they want to know what they're going to be paying in taxes. And no company, and frankly, no homeowner for that reason wants to see this every year
can't
in
plan with that.
in their tax rate. The more steady you can keep it, the better off we will be, especially for the other people that hate it are the mortgage holders who, when people escrow their taxes and if the rate's going like this, it drives them crazy.
Makes it really hard.
Right, because they've got to determine how much they're keeping in escrow when they're paying people's taxes. So, I mean, I think it's a good idea to start the budget process early.
Well, I think it's always a good idea to start the budget process early. I find it very disturbing that we sometimes seem to cram it all into like a couple of days, and then we go to vote, and it's all crammed into a few hours, and it just passes, and goes to the polls. You want to have some discussion. I think it gives people more time to think about what's going on, maybe come in and ask some questions during this process, and be more prepared when we go to our meetings in March.
Well, and the other thing that's largely out of our control too, when we're putting together the budget, are increases in health care. We just don't have a lot of control over that. And the other thing is the increase in the retirement system and how much the employees' contribution rates are going up. And we just got notified that rates are going up pretty significantly next year. So we're going to have to budget more
Yeah.
to meet our obligation for the retirement system. So that's, that's going to put a little dent in things.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it sounds like a pretty good plan to me. A lot of
I think it is.
examination
Yeah. I
going
mean, there's been a
forward,
lot
so.
of thought that's gone into all of this, Dottie.
Yep. Okay. Sanborn Road. What's happening up there
Well,
with the elderly
so that's
housing?
where the affordable elderly housing has been proposed,
Right.
and the developer who's taken this on continues to do his due diligence. I know he has to apply for the tax credits for next year by June 1st of this year, which he
Okay.
is doing, and it'll be a phased-in project. The biggest thing right now is he's been doing a lot of soil samples
Yes.
up there, and the original wetlands footprint that he thought was up there based on a project that came forward over a decade ago has now changed in that there's more now man-made wetlands on this area of land. And that was something that he had actually gone in to talk to the Conservation Commission about at their last meeting to make them aware that the only way he was going to be able to do this project is by impacting some of these man-made wetlands and
Now,
filling them in.
man-made, how did this happen?
Well, it really happened from when we were cleaning up the site.
Oh, okay.
When we were moving soils around and cleaning up the site, it was done in such a way that it created kind of a catchment area in certain places. So it's not a natural wetland that occurred because the soils underneath this
Are
wet
not
area
wetland soils.
are not wetland soils. They're dry. They're
Yeah.
upland soils. But there's these areas where water is catching and it's staying there, and so you have some aquatic plants that
Right.
are coming up. So
So he needs to make sure the Conservation Commission knows that he's not going to fill in natural wetlands.
correct. Yeah, yeah, but that he's going to have to apply for a dredge and fill permit from DES
Okay.
in order to put the buildings on this land. So he's running into some hiccups. He's still very much committed
Okay.
to making it work on the site, but it's a little more
Complicated.
hairy than it was looked at initially.
And it was complicated to begin with.
And it was complicated
Yeah.
to begin with because it's a brownfield site, that's since been cleaned up.
Yeah.
But so
Brownfield means it was contaminated.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. But he is committed
George
to
Carlin
it.
would have a problem with that.
With what?
With us calling it a
A
brownfield
brownfield.
now instead of contaminated.
Contaminated. Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, but it's gonna start. It's still moving forward.
It's
and
still
it's just
moving
a matter
forward.
of not quite
Yes,
as fast as we might have hoped.
No, I wouldn't even say not as quite as fast. It's more complicated right now than
Okay.
I think he was hoping it was going to be. The timeline is still the same. He's still applying for the tax credits with an eye toward putting the first building up next year.
Yeah.
But getting there is going to be the obstacles to get there are more now than they were 6 months ago.
It's never easy.
No, it is not.
It's never easy. So what did I write down there?
I don't know. I can't. Let's see. Oh, that was the head
Oh, that
shaving,
was your head shaving
which we
thing.
talked
That's
about.
why we already did that. Yep.
I see the next one though is the I93
yes.
expansion. So
And exit 4A.
in
and how
Exit
that works
4A.
in.
So we had a presentation recently on Exit 4A as well. I'll start with the I93 expansion
okay.
first. The state just accepted the last round of loans that they need to complete this project. It was $200 million.
Drop in the bucket.
Yeah, and as people go up and down 93 now, especially between exits 3 and 4, they'll see a lot of blasting going on, a lot of clearing going on.
Yeah.
And they are on track to have this whole thing done by 2020, with kind of the last pieces being from exit 5 north to Manchester and the exit 4 area. And there's going to be reconstruction of the bridge, the 102 bridge going over 93. There's going to be a lot of reconstruction done off the exit ramps around exit 4. But that's what they're going to, I believe they were putting the contracts out to bid for that portion this summer, and then they're going to start on it this fall. But they're really going to town and, making the space. Now, one of the questions that has been coming up is it going to be 3 or 4 lanes? Because if you notice right now
That was the question in my head.
well, if you notice the areas that they've quote unquote completed right now.
Like by exit 3, you've
Yeah.
got 3 lanes, but there's this really wide extra piece over here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the answer is they have built it out enough to do 4 lanes. And the plan is to do 4 lanes, but they can only pave 3 lanes. So think of it as, if this pad of paper were the whole thing,
Yeah.
they've built more of it over here, but they haven't paved it yet. The reason being is that the Conservation Law Foundation is more or less suing the state over salt and chloride going into the environment as a result of all the new pavement. And they've basically said that until the state can show that it is reducing its salt that it's putting on the roads, they won't be allowed to pave that 4th lane. So right now the state is trying to work out an agreement with the environmental group to both show salt reduction so that the group will say, okay, we're fine, or the judge will say we're fine that you can now pave that 4th lane. So they're building it, they're just not allowed to pave
To
it yet
actually- okay.
until this salt issue gets cleared up, because there are some watersheds along I93 where they're only allowed to, there's only allowed to be so much salt that goes into these watersheds. One of them is the Beaver Brook watershed right here in Londonderry and in Derry. And so the state's trying to comply with the federal regulations about salt reduction and how much salt they put into the environment. More pavement you have, more salt you're going to have going into the environment, because we live in New England and believe it or not, it snows from time to time. Although this winter, you would never have known it.
Crazy.
But we're never going to see that
gonna
again
talk
for a
about
while.
it. Yeah.
So that's what's going on there. So hopefully by the end of it all, it'll be a 4-lane highway and not a 3-lane highway. Concurrent to that, of course, is exit 4A, which is still planning on going forward. Right now they're in the environmental impact study phase of it,
Okay.
which is the environmental impact statement and the not the permits, but the easements to where they're going to be putting the ramp in, the right-of-way, obtaining the right-of-ways. That is scheduled to all be done by 2019, with construction to begin at the very end of 2019 on exit 4A.
Boy, sometimes it seems like it takes forever to do these
It does.
things.
It does. And a lot of it, this environmental impact study is a big part of it. It was a big part of the 93 expansion.
Yeah.
And so there's certain things you have to show as part of this impact study and get approvals and everything else before you can even start construction. And this is where, protecting the environment is a great thing. We should be doing it. We should be good stewards of the environment. But it gets to a point where you have to ask the question, which way is the pendulum swinging? Whereas, decades and decades ago, it may have been all the way over here where we just did projects without any thought to how it was impacting the environment, to where now are we saying, let's protect every little thing of the environment, that it's halted any kind of development.
Yeah.
There's a show on PBS, Frontline, or I can't think of the name of it, but they had a great documentary on the building of the Cooley Dam at the time that was built out west, and how it's amazing that a project like that was the largest dam in the United States at the time, and really provided the energy and power for World War II in building a lot of the machinery that we needed. And it was literally built overnight when it was done. From the time they start of the dam to finish. And the people that were in this documentary talked about there were definitely impacts, environmental impacts. It flooded a lot of areas where Native Americans were living at the time, who lost their homes because just the waters ended up flooding. But it was interesting in that even the environmental scientists said when you looked at the positive impact that the dam provided versus the environmental impacts, the positive outweighed the negative in that case.
Yeah.
And that isn't to say that, there shouldn't have been more things done,
Right.
to look at the environmental impacts at the time. But the message that really came out of it was a project like that, it just, not only would it not be done today, no one would even think of doing it because there are too many regulations and hoops to jump through today to do a major project like that. And we see it on a small scale when developers are looking at doing certain developments, that the money and time that will go into just getting permits and approvals it's not worth it. And so it doesn't get done. And so it goes back to my point of where's that balance? There has to be a balance there. When people say, "Oh, why is it taking so long?" Well, it's because there are thousands of pages of regulations that have to be followed. The Sanborn Road site, okay? What the developer's finding out right now is even in Londonderry, we have so many regulations, zoning regulations on the books, that he finds that, and because of the wet areas that are on the site, that every time he meets one regulator, every time he jumps the hurdle and meets one, it then backs up against another one. Something else pops up. So you may meet the setback regulation, but now you're bumping into a floodplain regulation. And you try to meet that, and then you're bumping into, and it's no wonder these folks pull their hair out because they say we're over-regulated to the point where no one's going to do anything. And so it's a question I think we have to ask ourselves going forward. And it's at every level. It's at the local, the state, the federal, and I think it's all well-meaning. I do.
The intentions are obviously good.
The intentions are good, but people really have to get out of their silos that they're in and only thinking about their territory and really need to ask the question, how is this going to impact everything else?
Right.
And it would be great if all of these different groups and factions were working together in making these regulations versus just this group over here makes these ones.
And maybe finding some solutions.
Finding solutions and having a real plan going forward.
Sounds like a good plan. Maybe
I
even
went off on a
somebody.
little bit of a soapbox there,
That's
Dottie, but
okay.
it's something that I've
That's
seen
okay.
over and over and over since I've been town manager, and and it has these things have real impacts.
They do.
You know, so.
Well, I think that's what we were going to cover for today. Is there anything else that you?
Nothing I can think of. Just happy
Okay.
Memorial Day.
Okay, happy
To everyone.
Memorial Day. Yeah.
And
Quickly, Old Home Day. Plans moving forward nicely.
I believe so.
Okay.
I haven't attended any of the recent Old Home Day meetings, but if people are interested, they can go online, see when the meetings are, and if they want to help and volunteer with Old Home Day, they're more than welcome to.
Sounds like a good plan.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, Kevin, thank you.
Dottie, thank you again.
I'm glad that you do this with us every month.
I'm happy to do it.
People, send in your questions. Let us know what you want us to talk about, and we'll cover it because we're talking about transparency in government. We're not hiding a thing.
Nope.
So I hope that you will tune in next time. And in the meantime, as I said, send in your questions. Let us know what you want us to talk about, and we'll be happy to do that. And all the contact information is at the end of the show. So thanks for being here. Kevin, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dottie.